can tell you the price of a bottle of champagne.
Winter's coming.
Well, I grew up in Scotland where the decisions about our future are taken by the people who care most about Scotland, the people who live here.
The Spanish town of La Línea de la Concepción in Andalusia is packed with people and vehicles. Around 14,000 employees regularly make the crossing to work in the British enclave, and some, like Miguel, are already suffering the first consequences of the UK's impending departure from the EU.
First we had the fall of the pound. My salary has taken a hit, because in pounds it is still the same. But when I change it back to euros, my purchasing power now is not what it was several years ago.
With just over 32,000 inhabitants, Gibraltar needs these workers, and companies fear that Brexit will make it difficult for them to cross the border. Christopher employs 18 people in his warehouse. Half are frontier workers, and without them, they would not be able to function.
It is literally impossible to come up with additional staff to cover all the jobs in Gibraltar that would be affected by if frontier workers weren't able to come.
Talks between the UK and the EU are now in the crucial final stages, and there remains huge uncertainty as to what the final deal will be. Some companies are trying to anticipate the outcome and find solutions to potential border problems.
Can people work from a remote location for a while? Is there a way they can have more flexible hours? Can we change the hours to make it so they're not at the peak times, that kind of thing, which some businesses can do that and some can't. You know, it depends what industry you're in.
And not only those working in Gibraltar are worried. Eladio has a garage in La Línea de la Concepción. 2/3 of their customers come from Gibraltar looking for lower prices. But if there are problems at the border, he fears they'll stop coming and his business will have to close.
Here there's nothing. We would have to take our suitcases and go abroad just like in the 60s.
Eladio's family emigrated to France after Spain's former dictator Francisco Franco closed the border with Gibraltar in 1969. Now, just as it was then, the prospect of finding another job in La Línea de la Concepción, where the unemployment rate exceeds 31%.
If the main political parties don't abide by the rules, i.e. we hold elections, we are given a mandate, and then our energies go into implementing that mandate, then our voters will turn their back on us. And I would say to the Remainers, just as the Leavers would have accepted the result, and then work together in the best national interest. If there ever is a moment where I think whichever way you voted, and whether you are traditionally a Labour or a Tory voter, the next 6 months is our challenge to see whether we can work together in the national interest to deliver the vote result that we are leaving. And that to me means that you no longer have the European Court of Justice having the final say over our laws. It means that we can strike our own trade deals, and it means it will be the House of Commons which will vote on what our immigration policy is. These are the bedrocks of what the referendum was about.
For Richard, this is British soil. His brother was murdered in these fields. They were milking cows when the IRA struck.
And as we came along the road there and just turned in the end of the lane, 3 guns opened up on us.
The gunmen fled south by boat. In Fermanagh, the border runs through the lakes, and Richard fears any tampering with it could reopen old wounds.
You have the IRA wants United Ireland. British people don't want a United Ireland. And if there comes a hard border, it may give the IRA an excuse. We'll start up again to get rid of this border.
Arlene Foster describes the targeting of Protestants along the border as ethnic cleansing. The DUP leader's own idyllic childhood here came to an abrupt end.
It's part of who I am. I mean, when I was 9 years of age, I was forced to leave my home on the border because my father was shot, and we couldn't live there any longer because he was a member of the police service. Therefore, the border is something that's very real to me. The people that came across that border to murder my father went across that border again to escape justice.
Some died defending the border, their Britishness, others attacking it, pursuing Irish unity. Sinn Féin says Brexiteers don't understand that customs posts once divided Ireland.
It's not just patronising and naive, it's deeply insulting. And for a lot of the people that are making those protestations, never been across the border, they've never had to have their social lives and every element of their lives disrupted because of checks on the border, and I will fight with every fibre of my being to ensure that a hard physical border does not come back into the island of Ireland.
Violence isn't inevitable, but the threat can't be dismissed, according to a former Assistant Chief Constable who's gone from policing the border to spearheading reconciliation.
Some people here see themselves as British with an allegiance to Westminster. Other people see themselves as Irish with an allegiance to Dublin. Wherever you create a border between either of those two, the potential is you create a semi-detached status for a group of people. And when you've never had your identity challenged or threatened, sometimes it's very hard to understand how important that issue of identity is.
There's been so much blood spilt over this invisible line. It's naive to suggest that one side or the other should just compromise now for Brexit expediency. The partition of Ireland is so entwined with identity. This border has outlasted the Iron Curtain and been here longer than the divide between North and South Korea. Peace had consigned it to a map, enabling people to choose their identity. But the border could prove the difference between a deal and no deal.
Well, how about this? The head of the European Union, top guy there, he threatens to campaign for the breakup of the United States if President Trump continues to support the Brits getting out of Europe. Oh. You know who's perfect for this? That guy right there. That is Nigel Farage. He's the man behind the Brexit deal in the first place, and he's a Fox News contributor. What is going on here? Please tell us.
Well, I think what Mr. Juncker has done is made himself look a complete and total idiot. He's comparing the United States of America, which has a common culture and a common desire to be a nation, with the United States of Europe that he wants to build and wants to impose upon the peoples of Europe. So Brexit has happened. Trump was a supporter of that project. And now, frankly, this idiot, because I can't think of a better word, says that he'll campaign for Ohio to break away from the USA. I think the European Union and Jean-Claude Juncker just lost whatever credibility in the USA they had.
OK, now I've got to bring up this, because when we learned that you were part of the movement to break up California into two parts, interior and coastal elites, when we heard that, the first question to us was, what on earth is Nigel Farage, the Brexit guy, doing trying to break up California? You want to explain yourself, Nigel?
Yes, I do, please. OK. Tim Draper, successful Californian businessman, takes the view that California is too big, too centralised, too badly run, and it would be better to be broken up into smaller units. He's believed that passionately for a long time, and, you know, think about it. I mean, there are 200 countries in the world with populations smaller than California. I happened to be in California as an awards ceremony, as a speaker, and I was invited to go and talk to a group of people who were thinking about making a change that the LA establishment will say is impossible. And I guess the moral of the story is, what Brexit proves is if you want something enough, it can happen. And looking at the liberal coast and the more conservative interior, you know, I don't think it's completely impossible.
It's a stretch, Nigel. I think you'll have to admit it. It is a stretch.
Well, it may well be a stretch, but you know, I was just there to bear witness. You know, I have to remove any doubt. It is not me trying to break up California.
OK, that's what I wanted to hear, OK, because you become very unpopular all of a sudden if you were that guy. All right. Now, it's something more serious. You want the United Kingdom, the Brits, to enter into individual trade agreements with individual European countries. That's how you see the future of British trade with Europe, correct? Now, OK, I know that's your view.
Yeah.
What chance of this actually happening?
Well, in the short term, that isn't going to happen. The EU will, for their negotiations, I think, hold together. And they're saying today that they won't even talk about trade with us until we've paid some ludicrous bill of over 50 billion sterling. So effectively, they're trying to blackmail us. And this is all rather stupid, really, because we trade at a big imbalance with the European Union. They sell us far more than we sell them. And they're prepared, these European politicians are prepared to put their crumbling dream of this European project above the interests of their own workers and their own companies. So this is their initial starting shot. Let's see where it goes.
OK, one last one for you. The French elections are coming up, I think it's about 3-4 weeks' time. Handicap it for us. Is Marine Le Pen stand a real chance of winning the presidency itself? Not the first round, but the presidency.
Well, she'll win the first round and then go into a runoff against Monsieur Macron. Marine Le Pen is tested heavily. There are no more bad stories about Marine Le Pen to come out. Macron is virtually unknown. He's the sort of pretty boy and has got all the media support. I think when it comes to a head-to-head, she will start to gain ground on him. At the moment, you have to say Macron is favourite, but what Brexit and Trump prove is that actually once that campaign starts in real earnest, it could happen. Anyone that tells you Marine Le Pen cannot win is wrong.
You know why you're popular in the United States? Number one, you've got a great British accent. Number two, you speak in sound bites. And number three, you never hold back. Nigel Farage, great guy. Thanks for joining us as always. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Nigel.
Your policies have blighted the lives of millions of people. Meanwhile, our security is endangered because of the results of mass immigration. Under Mrs. Merkel's leadership, you have brought in millions of people from Africa, the Middle East and beyond, and you intend to bring in millions more. You have turned many parts of Europe into foreign countries. You use the emotional blackmail argument of talking about helping defenceless refugee families, and yet the reality is that the vast majority of these migrants are young men from Islamic countries. This is not immigration, this is invasion. Traditionally, Europe resisted Islamic invasion. Heroic struggles in the siege of Malta at the gates of Vienna have now been replaced by abject surrender. Islam offers two options: submit or resist. You have decided to surrender and submit on behalf of your citizens, but some states are resisting. Rebellion is now stirring in Hungary, Poland, the Czech Republic, Austria and elsewhere. The tide is turning against the EU. And best of all, we have Brexit, a modern peasants' revolt against their out-of-touch overlords. When Britain leaves the European Union, we can point the way for a Europe of independent, democratic nation-states. Most people want a Europe of genuine trade, friendship and cooperation. They do not want rule from Brussels. Hear, hear.
we have a celebrity effigy who appears on our field every year. The celebrity effigy gets voted by the public, and what happens is all the votes, all the nominations that get put forward get discussed in a committee meeting and a decision is made. And this year we have Boris Johnson, who perhaps just made one gaffe too many, and that's why he's ended up in our Effigy Hall of Fame. I think he has a tendency to talk a lot, perhaps without thinking about what he's saying, and he does put his foot in it sometimes. So I think perhaps he's just done that a bit too often, and that's why the public wanted to see him on our field this year.
Boris is sort of fun caricature person. I mean, he's really easy to caricature because he gives us all these ideas when you Google him. His messy hair is the biggest thing, isn't it? But he's a keen cyclist, so we had to put the helmet in. And also he likes to run in his funny shorts. And then, of course, we wanted to put a little bit of Brexit in with the cake and the buses.